Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Connor at the Catholic University of America. That is the only time you're allowed to do the. It is not an Ohio State thing. I don't care what anybody says. As someone who went to Ohio University for grad school that was founded before Ohio State, but we will go the Catholic University of America, my other alma mater. Welcome, Coach.
Love it. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I think you're allowed to do the for us. That works for us for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Whenever I tell anybody, oh, I went to Catholic U, they're like, oh, you Georgetown, Notre Dame? No, no, it's not either of those actually. But okay.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
but we're talking here. It's towards the end of October. In fact, my wife was just there for homecoming weekend, her 25th reunion, and you guys got a big dub, and your guys are currently sitting. Well, I won't say it because I don't want to jinx it. Because I was sitting with my girls' high school team at this record last year, so I'm not jinxing it.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. Appreciate
but
it.
uh, but you guys are doing well. We'll just leave it at that. And I mean, 30 years ago when I went there is completely different animal than what it is today. So I think my freshman class we had six kids. Only it was a part-time coach. Only one of the six had a recruiting call with a coach. The rest of us just showed up and played. And um, but how do you work recruiting right now? Like it being the fall, how much your time is spent on recruiting for next year, versus just doing what you got to do to run the season.
Yeah, no, it's a unique time of year, especially in the fall. I mean, obviously we want to focus on recruiting and kind of keep up the relationships that we've built up probably since, mid last year is where we started focusing on the 2026 class. And so, yeah, it's part of our weekly routine for sure. Myself and our assistant will sit down and kind of go through who's playing high school this week, what club games are going on. So we do spend time on, but it is also it is difficult a little bit because of the grind of the season. I mean, two games throughout the week, prepping for that, you kind of really get no downtime. So it's a bit of a balance, but in about 2, 3 weeks here, things pick up no matter where you are in the season because as you know, like the club stuff gets going, high school seasons are ending, and it's just full steam ahead with that side of stuff. So we do spend some time with it, but in about 2 or 3 weeks, that really ramps up quite a bit.
So I guess I'll ask this question first. Of your recruiting time that you're spending as a as a top 25 D3, how much right now is class of 26 and how much is class of 27? How much are you looking that much further?
Yeah, good question. So for the 26 class, we have two committed right now, and just to be full transparent, we're looking at about 7 to 9 guys in that class. And so it's a smaller class this year because we graduated big class last year of about 14, so we brought in a bigger freshman class, which is a little unique. And then we're only graduating 4 guys. While they're impactful, we're only graduating 4 this year. So the numbers game and all of that starts to kind of come into consideration. So we're still pretty heavy into the 2026 class, just the way our admissions process works, where we're at as a program and all of that. We're still kind of heavy into the 2026. But with that being said, we're now full in still with the 2027. So it's a balancing act for sure. But I think we would do ourselves a disservice if we were like, let's put all the 2027s in a folder. We'll see them in a few months and worry about that. I think that sets us behind. And so it's definitely a balance, but really still focusing on the 2026 class with now starting to really create relationships, focus on some evaluations on the 2027 class as we get into, as you know, the heavy club showcase craziness of the year. So, yeah, kind of a bit of both.
Okay. Well, speaking of that craziness, I mean, you mentioned going to high school games. Obviously, the DMV's got, really good high school programs and good soccer there, but also great club soccer. So where, what are the events that you go to? What's on your must-hit list each year when you're looking for players?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the high school side of stuff, obviously the WCAC is massive around here, and we always seem to get great kids from that league, and obviously the MIAA certainly helps. So that will kind of continue to go to. I think we're really sort of mindful of our time with that. Like if we tried to go to every single high school game possible, I'd be late for our game tomorrow night, which isn't a good thing. So we're always mindful about where we're going and who we're going to see in the high school side of stuff. But in terms of the club side of things, over the last 2, 3 years, even going back through Coach Beecham and when I was an assistant here with him, the ECNL side of stuff's obviously massive. I think the way they put things on and how they organize things and the quality of it's fantastic. So we'll hit a lot of those events, certainly MLS Next events. We've been really fortunate enough to continue to get kids from there, but we're kind of all over the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast sort of region. I mean, could we go out to California and Arizona and some of these places and go see teams? Sure, and that's great. But I think there's so much quality in this region, and we do so well in it that we try to really be mindful of our time and our yield and where we can get kids from. And so, the EDP side of stuff, the PDA showcases, the Penn Fusion side of stuff that I hold a lot of showcase events. There's a lot of those, and I'm from Philly, so getting back home is really nice. But a lot of those we do really well with, and so we really try and make sure that we're there for, and a lot of that side of stuff within the East Coast. And then we will head down to Florida. I know ECNL does stuff down there, and there's some different camps and stuff around there. So it just honestly just depends on the year and what our needs are and where things are with the ECNL, MLS Next, EDP, USYS side of stuff. Because I know they're always changing things. Like I know MLS Next this year has really kind of changed locations. So we just have to look at it and see what works for us.
Well, you mentioned camps too. So do you guys run an ID camps at CUA, or do you and your staff work other ID camps? Are they part of your recruiting process?
Yeah, for sure. A little bit of both. And so we started since I've been back. This is obviously my second year. We had one in the summer, which was about 50 kids. We kind of capped it at, and it was fantastic. Our two commits came from that camp. We had seen them a little bit, but ultimately made our final decisions through that camp, which is fantastic. And that's kind of been the tradition here at Catholic too, even with Coach Beecham. Like we've always had kids come from camp, and it's a great tool for us because they see how we do things. They hear from our coaching staff, and maybe how we organize and talk a little bit. And then we also see them in a setting around our guys. And we had about all 18 returning guys back this summer because we did a international trip 2 days later to Costa Rica. So they were all back and got to mix in with our guys, and that's a really helpful tool for us too, because at the end of the day, they need to fit with our group and how we do stuff. And so we'll do another one in the spring, and then we'll get another one going in the summer. And then we do go to other camps as well, whether it's other colleges camps that we'll kind of help mix in with, or some of the bigger ones throughout the summer and throughout the year. We're always looking to find new ways to see kids and evaluate and go through that process.
Okay. Well, whether it's at a high school game, a club tournament, a camp, kind of what makes up the hierarchy of things that you're looking for in a player, both on and off the field.
Yeah, and we've always kind of said this, and it may sound a little confident and cocky, but I think we can always get really good soccer players here. I mean, that's always kind of been, with our location, our academics, certainly the success of the program over the years. I think the biggest thing for us is the character of the individual, and I know it may sound a little cliche, but someone that fits the experience that we provide here. I mean, you obviously know the experience that you get at Catholic University and with being in DC, and it's pretty full on. We ask a lot of our guys to do different things and to be involved in some different stuff, whether it's a little bit silly or a little bit more serious. And so for us, it's finding the person that just kind of dives into a ton of different things, is willing to put themselves out there a little bit. And that's hard for a 17, 18 to 22-year-old to do. But within the recruiting process, just kind of seeing how they interact with everybody around them and maybe some of the different things they do throughout their high school and soccer careers. And that's really important to us. And so aside from just obviously getting good soccer players, because again, I mean, the landscape of club and high school soccer has changed so much. There's so many good players out there. And so, not to say that it's easy to get them, but we really focus in on the person and how they fit in with some of the things that we do here, which is a little bit different. And so, we really try and do our due diligence. Our assistants do a fantastic job of calling club coaches and being in kind of those circles coming up and making sure we get the right person here.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school. You're not an alum, but you were on staff for a bit, and so this is kind of your second go around. So you got a decent perspective on it. So, I mean, I know my opinions, but what are some of the things you find awesome about Catholic? Maybe some things people wouldn't know just by going through the website.
Well, funny enough, and obviously I know you did the interview with Coach Beecham. If you had asked him about my recruiting process, I actually got recruited to come here, and it was, I to be honest, I thought I was kind of in coming to Catholic, and this is why everyone needs good grades because that kind of held me back a little bit back in the high school days. And so, and then I actually did my master's here too as a graduate assistant. So technically sort of an alum, but not the full alum experience. But what I love about Catholic, I mean, is just the opportunities that you have here. I was just talking to one of our assistant ADs about the business school, the Bush School of Business, and how many internship opportunities, career fair workshops, these sort of mock interview things that they can get into. And that's kind of widespread across our academic side of stuff. And, aside from maybe some of the rankings that we're in as a school or whatever, the career preparation that they do for you here is unreal. So that's, for me, one of the biggest things that we offer here. One of the exciting things, because we had a bunch of our alums, like you had mentioned, your wife being back for Cardinal weekend this past weekend. We had a bunch of younger alums back, and they're all doing amazing things in their career fields, and it has everything to do with the opportunities that they have, but also taking advantage of those opportunities. So on the like academic campus side of things, that's certainly one. But then, I mean, being in DC is awesome. There's so many different things you can get into from, some of the museums and restaurants and concerts you can get into, just going to see all the national monuments. You're never bored here. And if you are bored here, something's kind of amiss there. And so it's awesome. It's awesome being back in DC. Like you said, this is my second go around. And so coming back to the city and the university has been fantastic.
Well, I think I've mentioned this probably on Travis's interview, but my favorite fun fact to drop on everybody is Catholic University is the second largest landowner in the District of Columbia behind the federal government.
It's a pretty
So,
cool stat right there. That's a pretty
yeah,
cool fact. I'll
so
take
you
that.
so you don't know, when you're on campus, you don't really know you're in the middle of a big city. It's not like GW or some of these other ones that are downtown and which I think is also a
Yeah.
cool thing about it. But well, you mentioned the academics and some great opportunities but that can be really difficult, right? Especially for high school kids coming in. So how do you make sure your student athletes really balance their studies and the sports commitments and what kind of support services is there for folks to make sure they're doing all right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a transition, even as you go from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, junior, senior, because classes get harder. There's some different demands, certainly with internships and things. So every year is a little bit of a transition for guys. For us, with our first years coming in, we meet with them every 3 weeks just to go over like how you're planning stuff, how you're doing the time management side of things, how you're doing with that, how our class is going, how you're fitting in, socially enjoying things here than any soccer side of questions that they may have. So we try and do that throughout the first semester just to see help them get off on a good foot a little bit, but also the resources on campus are unreal from different tutoring services to the office hours with professors. There's always different things that we can kind of point them to. To be honest, we don't really do study halls and things like that. For me, I've found that and it works for others, which is great. But me getting a group of 18 to 22-year-olds in a room and say, "Hey, study for 2 hours," they're gonna get distracted at some point. And so when we do bring kids in and they're admitted here, it's because you can handle the academic material here. I mean, there's always challenges and things, but we really make sure the time management side of things we kind of focus in on because that's the biggest difference. And so at least that we've found, because now you have more free time and all things like that throughout the year, and there's just different things going on. And so and especially in the fall, I think kids for the most part find it a little bit easier too because everything's scheduled out for them from practice to film to scout to games. Your week's set out, so you can kind of schedule around that. It's the winter and spring that I think there's probably a little bit more of a transition because there is a little bit more free time on the Division 3 side of stuff, and so we truly really trying to manage it in the first semester. So when we do get to that winter and spring semester, they kind of know the deal and know the expectation and kind of have a set sort of foundation of how to handle stuff. But the services on campus are fantastic. So when we do have an academic liaison that works here in the university with our department, and so if there are some underlying things that need to go on, big issues, we can always point to them as well. So yeah, a ton of different avenues to kind of support them. And that's the biggest thing. We're always going to support you. We want to make sure that you're obviously getting the right resources for the academic side of stuff and for the athletic side of stuff as well.
You mentioned that planned out schedule. So, you're in the heart of the conference season right now. I mean, 3 games left. It's like, you're in it. So what does this week look like? What does a typical week look like for, practices, games, meals, all that stuff you just mentioned, classes, all that stuff?
Yeah, this year's a little unique because we have Tuesday conference games, which hasn't really been the norm. And so, early on, we met with our captains on what this may look like for this year of like, do we want to have Sundays off and just have a Monday pregame and a Tuesday game? What do you guys feel would make sense for us? And so, for this entire month, especially, we've had Sunday sessions. That means we're off on Wednesdays. And the Sundays are more of a recovery day, just kind of getting guys back from Saturday's game. So we did that last night. Today will be a 6:30, 6:45 pregame session for us. And then obviously Tuesday we play, Wednesday we're off, Thursday will be kind of a more traditional session at 6:30, getting going a little bit, prepping for Saturday. Friday will be a pregame session. This week's a little unique because we're going to travel overnight for Scranton, so we'll leave after that, and then Saturday obviously play. Sunday we'll do a recovery session and just kind of some like technical work and a little bit of a harder session for guys that didn't play a certain amount of minutes. Monday pregame, Tuesday game. So that's kind of been our typical week for the last few weeks, even in our out of conference, because we had some Tuesday games. We're always really mindful just of the workload we put on our guys. And so if you play 60 minutes or more in a game for us, that next day, if we're off, obviously it's an easy recovery day for you. But if we're not, it's going to be a recovery session for you, meaning you warm up for a little bit, you do some technical work, and then you go off with one of our assistants and do a full stretching, hydration sort of thing. So we try and manage that as best as possible, but then also getting a full session for the other guys because they need it. They need the fitness, but also to continue their development, and they need that. That's what we owe them. And so that's kind of been our week for a little bit, and that'll continue to be us hopefully for a little while longer here. So yeah, it's pretty routine for our guys. And the meal side of stuff and everything, they get that sorted with the dining hall and stuff like that. And they've always kind of been prepared because they know what to expect throughout the week. So now it's been pretty routine for us for now.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team, the soccer side of things. I know you mentioned the amount of recruits coming in and people graduating, but like, is there a roster size you're trying to hit each year that you'd like to have?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a specific number each year that we're getting told, hey, you've got to hit this, but we certainly want to obviously be competitive with the teams around us and make sure that we're not too low of a number to where if we pick up injuries or something, we're at a disadvantage. I also, we're fortunate enough, I think, for us not to have being told we're having to have a roster of 40 or 45 or something like that. It works for us. It may work for others, but it works for us having, we're always going to kind of be around that 31 to 34 range, I think, and that'll be with three or four keepers. And so that takes in like obviously injuries and things like that that go on. And so that'll always kind of be our sweet spot, in my opinion. In other years we've had a couple more, depending on transfers or what the year looks like, because I mean, as you know, the recruiting side of things is always changing. Like next week, the recruiting side of things may be a little bit different for us and what that looks like. But we'll always kind of be around that 31, 34-ish range for us. Hopefully, is what we can continue.
What about the other part of the roster, the coaching side, kind of who helps out with the team? What role does everybody play? Maybe what other support staff are there helping out on a
Yeah.
regular basis?
We've got a fantastic group of assistants. I'm really fortunate. We've had who's our graduate assistant, Nahom Faseha, who's been with us. This is his, oh my goodness, now his third year. So he's been with us for 2 years as a part-time guide. He's really connected with the DMV side of stuff. He grew up here, was a big-time player, went to St. Mary's, and so he does a fantastic job with some of our day-to-day stuff now as our graduate assistant, but on the recruiting side of things and our player sort of management side of stuff, he does everything, to be honest. And so he's been fantastic for us and then consistent for us too. That's been the biggest thing for us is having someone like that that's really consistent with us over the years, especially for our guys too. And then we have a goalkeeping coach, Nick Ortiz, this is his second year, and he's fantastic, and he does everything goalkeeper related. He's also stepped up in his role a little bit in terms of some of the tactical side of stuff and feedback for us. He's unreal, and I've been really fortunate enough to bring him on. And then we just added a new assistant this year, Danny Tierney, who was a teammate of mine at Lycoming. Fantastic player, was part of a Sweet 16 team, and he's come in and just kind of given a fresh perspective on things and a different set of eyes. And I think he really meshes well with our guys. And so again, I'm fortunate to have three really good assistants that all bring something different to the table, have different personalities for sure, and I think aren't afraid to give their opinion. There's room for that, and so they'll give me stuff that that sometimes we agree on and sometimes we disagree on, but they know that we can have those conversations. So again, really fortunate. Yeah, it's been awesome.
No, that's great. Well, what about you? Talk to us about your coaching style and the style of play you look to have there.
Yeah, I think kind of again the cliche thing's probably like a player coach, which I certainly am. Like I love mixing it in with our guys, and we'll joke before practice. We'll do soccer, tennis, and just have fun throughout the week. But I'm pretty upfront about like we're gonna coach you. We're gonna coach you hard, and we build those relationships early on so they know where it's coming from and that it's not a personal thing. It's for them to get better and for our program to get better. And so we're really kind of hands on with the training side of stuff and even in game, obviously like things get heated, but they know, I think, where it's coming from and why we're doing it. And the moment they don't, they know our door is always open. Come in and chat with us. And those are the days that I love the most. Like, yeah, we have to do stuff on the computer and recruiting calls and all this kind of stuff, but getting our guys to come in and just chat about things and give their opinion on stuff is what I love the most. And so it's certainly not my way or the highway. There is a set way that we do things within our process, but I love hearing the feedback from our guys on what they need, what they're looking for, what may work, what may not work, and so we certainly take their opinions in pretty highly. But then also in terms of our, I guess, playing style, you call it. I mean, we kind of have six things that are pretty set for us, three on the attacking side of the ball that are pretty general, and three on the defensive side of the ball. And then within that, like whether we change personnel, formation, or something happens in a game where we have to change things, I don't want our guys to freak out when we do that kind of stuff. Where, I mean, obviously we'll train certain things, but if something needs to be tweaked in a game, we still have our foundational principles that don't change. And so they can have that as a fallback. Where, I mean, it's the same thing in club soccer when we talk to recruits. Like if they have to change something because they can't scout every club soccer opponent, are they all of a sudden freaking out and don't know what to do, or can they go back to their foundation and what they've trained and work through that? And that's how we kind of approach our guys a little bit. And certainly, like if anyone watches any of our games, we like to keep the ball. We certainly like to have possession, but it's also, not stringing together 18 passes our own 18 just because it looks good. We want to be really intentional with how we do things. And so we're kind of rooted in those a little bit. And they're very general. Like the three things on the attacking side of the ball: value possession, be creative in the attack, be efficient in the attack. And within that, depending on who we bring in each year, that changes how that looks. But those three things never change for us on the attacking side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, it's three very general things: be organized and compact, whether it's a high press, mid block, low block. That never changes for us. Be prideful in your 1v1 defending. If you don't have some sort of sense of wanting to defend here, you're probably not going to play for us. And then be dominant on our set pieces. And so those six things never change for us. The formation, how that looks like, the personnel may change, and that's okay. We have to be adaptable, but for us, that's kind of how we approach things the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, love it. Well, hey, I really appreciate you giving us your time and telling us all about CUA. But I'm going to leave you with one last question, and that is, if you had one piece of advice for any high school potential student athlete in going through this process right now, what would that be?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a stressful one and always changing, even for us coaches. But I think the biggest thing for me that I'd stress to potential student athletes is just to be open to any option, any possibility, any place. Don't shut anyone out. You never know what happens in your recruiting timeline and your recruiting process. And not to say you have to go on every single visit and take on everything, but don't close off options because you never know what's going to happen and what opportunity may arise. And so be open to everything, respond to emails and certain texts. And I think that'll certainly make your recruiting process a little bit more efficient, but easier, and just enjoy it a little bit more. And ultimately, you're going to find the spot at the end that fits you and fits best for you, if you're open to any sort of possibility. So that's kind of the number one thing for us.
Awesome. Well, I wish you nothing but the best of luck here, finishing out
Appreciate
the
it.
conference season and the conference tournament, and hopefully we'll see you guys back in the national tournament and just keep things going, man. I'm rooting for you from down here, and if you get to if any of those recruiting events come down to Bradenton, give me a shout so we can get together. All right.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate Matt. This is awesome. Love the platform and appreciate what you're doing. So thanks again for having me on.
Thank you.